congregation please be seated? And we have a moment for some family remembrances, and I'd like to invite David to please come up and share with us, please.
Well, my allergies are kind of kicking up. Have to keep the Kleenex handy. As you all know, Karen sustained a serious injury when she was 15 years old. And when I was going through some of my mom's collection of albums, and she collected a lot of things. She had tons of albums. I came across, should I move this? I came across a number of notes of sympathy and encouragement from friends. And I read through those, and it dawned on me that that's a lost art. Anymore, it's a text message with an emoji. But in 1960, it was a handwritten note in ink with no scribbles, no lines drawn through it. And it was written like Abraham Lincoln wrote it. So I copied a few of these down. I wanted to read these to you all to share what was going on in the summer of 1960. Dear Ralph and Isabel, needless to say, it just doesn't seem possible that this could happen, but certainly impresses on one the uncertainty of life and health. We feel so incapacitated, but sincerely would like to be able to do something. I guess we as human beings are not supposed to understand some of the sorrow that life brings. I want you to know that you have our heartfelt sympathy, and we trust that God will find possible to restore Karen back to normal health. I know it's taking courage to face this critical situation. At times like this, it is difficult for me to find sufficient words to express our concern, but may our faith and prayers help in some small way. Isn't that beautiful? Here's another. In this hour of darkness, I hope you can feel my hand. Clasping yours for the sharing of comfort and strength. Together, we can press forward one step at a time to find a ray of light. You don't read stuff like that these days. But Karen's story is the most important chapter in my family's history. Her tragedy at age 15 taught each of us that life is precious and that monumental consequences can occur as a result of very brief periods of neglect. Queen Bee was the light of our family. She was the oldest. She was described as energetic, engaging, witty, smart, positive, willful. Fortunately, her injury did not destroy these distinctive personality traits. But of course, she was frustrated, and she was bewildered much of her life because she didn't understand what happened. She became, as she grew older, like most of us, less volatile. But for many years, it was a wild ride for her and for our family. I remember times when she would march out of the house, barely clothed, enraged because she was so frustrated. My older brother Cameron, who was an athlete, strong, quick guy, chased her down the block, and with her long fingernails thrashing he would try to subdue her to get her home. The task was daunting, and it was emotionally draining. And he was left pretty battle-scarred. As Karen aged, like most of us again, she mellowed. But her restlessness forced her to go to several different locations. She went to Brown School in San Marcos, Texas, Home of Hope in Veneta, Eastern State Hospital in Veneta, and Hissom Center for Brain-Damaged Adults in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Due to her residence at Hissom at a particular span of time, she became a member of a class action suit against the institution on the grounds of sexual abuse. To our knowledge, Karen had never been personally victimized, but she was definitely vulnerable and qualified to be a member of that class. As the case was pursued, the Judge Aldridge, awarded each member care for life, paid for by the state of Oklahoma. Thank you. It was that case and adjudication that led to her being able to establish residence in Bartlesville. My parents formed a trust for the benefit of Karen Emmott, and through that trust purchased a duplex where she lived for 25 plus years. I'll never forget, in '93, when my mother was visiting me in Kansas City, and she was so emotionally spent and wept as she said, "My daughter's coming home." Karen's home was a perfect place for her. She had great care, thanks to a lot of people. She had occupational therapy, physical therapy, nutritional therapy. She never missed a dental appointment. Thank you, Dean Zervis. She had doctor visits and round-the-clock care and companionship. My brothers and I accepted the roles of her guardianship when my mother was unable, and continued to do so until Karen's passing. There were challenges, but she had a great core of understanding caregivers. So I want to reach out to all of those people: Dr. Hancock, Dean Zervis, Ability Works, used to be ARC, Oklahoma DHS, Trust Department at Arvest Bank, Robinette King Law Firm, Cornerstone Hospice, and many more. At the time of Karen's passing, I witnessed the deep attachment her caregivers had for her. It's funny, human nature, you have all that time to prepare for the inevitability, and yet when somebody takes their last breath, it's dramatic, it's painful, buckets of tears. She was an important person. She transitioned with dignity. So, we lay this beautiful young lady to rest. Her spirited personality captured the hearts of many. Who were lucky enough to be a part of her life. We are comforted to know she is no longer frustrated and tormented by the inexplicable circumstances that dimmed, but fortunately did not extinguish, her light. In a weird way, what happened to Karen had made all of us who knew her, and particularly my family, stronger, more compassionate, more vulnerable, more fragile, and more determined. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, David. Is there anybody else from the family who would like to speak?
I'm Isabella. I'm the youngest daughter. And I was just a small girl when this happened. And I didn't know my sister very well. There were a lot of children, a lot of things going on. But I do remember the incident and how it totally destroyed so many things in our family. But with Isabel's strength and guidance, she held us all together the best she could, being the mother of a house full of small children. And such a tragic situation happening to her firstborn child. I remember Karen being very motherly. She took care of us as much as she could to help mother. And I remember the day they left to go to the hospital. And I always wondered what happened. There wasn't a lot of talk about it. And as the years went on, I remember seeing her going to different locations that were heartbreaking. And as a little girl, I couldn't understand why she couldn't come home. But she's home now. And she's back together with Mom and Dad. And like Mother said one time when David, I'm sorry, I told you I'd do that, said, Mother always prayed that Karen would be whole again. And Karen is whole. And Karen is safe with Ralph and Isabel. And they're all at home together now. And she will be missed. And she was very, very much loved. And every time I would see her, which wasn't as often as I would like, because I lived quite a ways away, she always instantly knew who I was. She never forgot her little sister. She never forgot my children. And she was always giddy and laughing and full of humor. And, I wonder how could somebody always be so happy with such tragedy? But she always was. She knew that she was loved, and she was cared for very, very much by all her brothers and sisters. The caregivers loved her. She knew she was safe, and now she's safe with our Lord God. Rest in peace, Karen.
I'll do my best to get through, but I got the crying gene in the family, so this might get a little messy. I'm Peter. I'm the baby. And the birth order was important. The events that David described, I can't imagine as a parent. I can't begin to imagine having Karen and her situation, and then having 5 other children that need your love and need your attention, and the depression that my mom must have felt every single day. And Ralph did everything he could to help her, and he couldn't get her out of that depression. The solution was to have another baby. And you're looking at him. I owe my life to Karen. Here we go. I didn't know this until just a little while back. Karen made everyone in our family better, stronger, more thoughtful because of who she was. She had a great sense of humor. She was really funny. Asked her what she liked. Do you like beans? To which she would go on a 2 or 3 minute thing about how she hated beans. So that was kind of fun. Jerry Gay, my wife, we would come visit, as we were probably the closest geographically to Bartlesville. And we would come visit Karen. There was always a milkshake and a Brahms burger. And usually we get the wrong flavor, so we'd have to go back and get a different flavor. But she'd destroy that cheeseburger and that milkshake. She always commented on my haircut, which was pretty easy pickings there. She always commented on how we were dressed. She was so happy to see us every time we came in. And Jerry Gay would always comment as we left. She'd say, "She's the happiest person I know." And she was. She was so happy and so glad to see us. And it made you feel good. Apologize. We would often talk with her caregivers when we were there. How are things going? Is she able to do this? Is she packing food? We wanted to make sure that we're being attentive to her. And we asked, is she getting any kind of activity? We were concerned that she was not getting activity, and we didn't think she was listening to us, which she was. And we said, well, how about we do some exercises, with the rubber bands and stretching. And Karen's eating her dinner, and again, we didn't think she was listening. And we said, "Karen, how about exercise?" And she shot up and said, "Yuck." She was listening, and she's not doing any exercising. Ain't gonna happen. So I'll always remember the happiness that she brought. It seemed so easy when I did it before. We will remember her happiness and the strength that she brought to our family. I thank all of you for being here today. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you all. Over the course of the past week, I've been thinking a lot about what a friend told me about when describing Karen. Consistently, folks' recollections of Queenie have been similar when approached, if not verbatim. As soon as the obituary was published, I had several clippings mailed to the office with a note saying as much. And for someone who has not had the pleasure of meeting any of you all until this morning, such actions speak louder than words. And so I've carried around what my friends here at Luke's Place have told me about your sister and the sense of wholeness that her obituary so lovingly speaks of, in hopes of offering you all a good word today. And there have been several times since David first contacted Dan that I wish that I could just have a few moments of your time to learn of your experience of Karen and to hear and to hold your memories of her so that in a way I could get to know her a little bit better through your eyes. And I think that just happened. And to anyone in my position who is given a photo, an obit, and a handful of memories with which to use to speak to a life, well, some might consider that not so much to go on. But I'm not so sure about that anymore. The fact of the matter is that if I was given that time, more time than I just had, I still would only see through a mirror dimly. For your experiences of Karen and your family are your own. And those memories, the good, the bad, the tragic, and the miraculous, are holy. And if you remember anything about this day, I hope that it would be that you all will continue to the best of your ability to live out of the richness of your memory of Karen, and not the poverty of circumstances we cannot change. If I'm honest with you all, that is what I have come to know about how your sister lived, and ultimately the gift her life gives back to us all. Of the richest memories in the Christian tradition is the way that Jesus is present with his disciples before his death, praying with them, washing their feet, giving them the command to love one another above all else, sharing a meal with them, and reassuring them that he will be with them always. And while the church most profoundly remembers this during the feast of Easter, this sense of reassurance and presence is operative and embedded throughout the whole arc of the story, not just the end of it. And we should recall, especially on days like today, that the whole arc of the story includes our own. And while subtle, this thread of reassurance, often overlooked due to the tragic nature of Jesus' final moments, gives witness to the way we are, in fact, loved by him, and substance the wholeness promised to us in the reassurance that we will be raised up on the last day, no matter our circumstance. And though we do not know the way this will happen for any of us, we do place our faith in the promise of Jesus, who said on that day that he shall come again and that he will take us to himself, so that where he is, there we might be also. And it is there, now in this moment, where we see Karen held in the loving arms of Jesus, whole, in a way that only God can understand through her return, and we can only dream of. My friends, there's a story in the Gospel of Luke in which Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem, and he is traveling through the region of Samaria. He is approached by 10 who are in need of great mercy, and thus they cry out to Jesus to have mercy upon them, to make them whole. And as his nature, he does not deny them. And of the 10 who received mercy that day, of the 10 that became whole that day, only one returns to learn the rest of the story. That it is only by the means of grace that we are saved, where the wholeness of that love transcends the nature of our bodies and rests most profoundly in the way our heart understands the nature of a love that is given without merit. Grace, the real kind, is often hard to pin down, and anyone who says otherwise has yet to learn how to give it. And that is because the true nature of grace is difficult to see unless placed in relief to the tragedy that often necessitates its giving. And some, perhaps those like me who do not know you or your sister, may hold on to the circumstance of Karen's disability as having been the defining moment of her life, and as such, placed among those who need the most grace. But in doing so, we would miss her life entirely. And we would miss seeing the true and miraculous nature of her heart, which knew above all things the meaning of gratitude and how to give love in ways some of us will never know. And so when I think about Karen, when I hold what has been given to me to know about her, I often think of the one who returned and who learned the ultimate lesson of this life, one who knew deep within herself the meaning and power of giving and receiving love, despite it all. And so you must know, by now, what people said to me about Karen. That she was the most gracious person they had ever known. My friends, no one becomes that person by accident.